Good afternoon. This is Joe Forward, legal writer for the State Bar of Wisconsin. And today I am with Lori Dorn. She is the Director of Administration for the Stafford Rosenbaum Law Firm. She is also the chair of the State Bar of Wisconsin's LOMAP committee. And she is a past president of the Wisconsin Association for Legal Administrators. And today we want to talk about some issues related to returning to the office for law firms and other businesses. And Lori's here to talk with us about that. Lori, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. And I appreciate the invitation to talk with you about questions that people are asking about returning to work in the office.
Okay. So Lori, you recently had a roundtable discussion with the legal administrators throughout the state. And what kind of guidance are law office administrators looking for to inform decisions about reopening and bringing employees back to work?
Yes, as law firm managers are creating plans for returning their employees to work in their offices, they're primarily looking for guidance on how they can keep their clients and employees safe and how they can comply with the ever-changing orders, regulations, and COVID-19 related laws that are in existence. They're interested in learning best practices for maintaining a healthy work environment and educating clients and employees on new policies and procedures that they're enacting for the protection of clients and employees.
So Lori, what are some of the measures that law firms should be taking to ensure a safe workplace for employees and clients?
One thing that law firms can do is create a team or a committee or assign an individual within their firm to create a plan, implement it, monitor it, and modify it in response to evolving recommendations from the CDC and other health orders that come down from the federal government or state or local municipalities. Also, I think people should be realizing that this virus is not going away just because people are coming back to work in the office. And many firms are contemplating having their employees come back on a staggering basis instead of having everybody come back the first day the safer at home orders or whatever the county orders that they're responsible for complying with lift. And in order to prepare a plan for bringing people back into the office on a staggering basis, you might want to consider having a survey to identify people's preferences, gauge their fears, and engage in conversations about what you might do to make them feel more comfortable coming back to work in the office. And once you have people coming back in the office, you will want to have a log of people that are working, what days and times they're in the office, and you probably should also consider keeping a log of the clients and visitors that come to your office in case you become aware of somebody who has tested positive for COVID-19 and you want to provide those notifications that are required. Also, one thing that is important is making sure that you evaluate your building and your office space specifically. The building considerations include things like your HVAC system, your air filters, making sure that they're in compliance with whatever CDC rules or regulations or guidelines they have. If you have an elevator, in the past, I think we've been used to having elevators packed, and you will want to make sure that if it's your building that you have marked spaces so that it's a reminder for people to maintain social distance. Or if you're a tenant in a building and have an elevator, you'll want to be talking to your landlord about some of those concerns. Things like restrooms, to the extent that you can implement touchless soap dispensers or other features that allow you to use the facilities without having to touch items. Cleaning, you'll want to make sure that you have your janitors do a good, thorough cleaning job every day, preferably, and also have staff routinely cleaning their office spaces or any common areas, such as break rooms, conference rooms, and the like. If your office is set up to do so, you might want to consider having one-way hallways, to allow people to maintain social distance. And finally, in your conference rooms, you'll want to place your chairs 6 feet apart. You'll want to make sure that your employees are 6 feet apart, or if they're not, to the extent that you can, put up barriers to make people feel safe and to prevent any potential viruses or germs that might be out there. Also, you'll want to make sure that you have a 30 days supply of hand sanitizers and soap and other cleaning supplies that you will be needing to maintain that sanitary office environment. And another, one of the things that we as law firm managers need to think about as well is are our clients, our visitors, comfortable coming into our offices? And so these things that we're talking about are all things that you can do to help make them feel more comfortable. And I realize that there's a broad array of opinions on, do you wear a mask or don't you wear a mask? And some people feel more comfortable if they're in an environment with people wearing masks, and others don't. And if you're like Stafford Rosenbaum, it's hard, without government, mandates that you have to wear these things, it's hard to say that, we're going to require our clients to wear them. But what we can do is we can strongly recommend that they are worn and emphasize that we're wearing these masks in common areas or when we meet with clients, really in an effort to protect them. And I think most people would respect that, but it's something that you should be thinking about. Is it something that you want to actively promote or not? Just a couple of other points. People, from an employer standpoint, you also want to be thinking about business and personal travel. Do you want to have policies in place, to have people self-isolate or work from home for a period of time if they travel to an area that is considered higher risk? That's a more difficult one to implement if you want to move in that direction. The business travel is easy, but the personal travel becomes a little bit more complicated. And finally, training is really important. I think that in any event, you want to make sure that you have the CDC, posters out so that people can be reminded of social distancing and hand washing guidelines. One thing that I think is going to be a lot harder for us all to do is think differently about how you greet people. We're so used to doing a handshake. And now we need to start thinking about other ways to, warmly greet people when you see them, preferably without the handshake. But again, being a client service organization, if a client reaches out to shake your hand, you have a decision. Do you shake their hand and then use hand sanitizer discreetly afterwards, or not? Those are the issues that I think people need to be talking about.
Yeah, Lori, that's really some great information for law firms to consider. And I wonder if there are plans or sample policies. It's a lot to keep track of. I wonder if there's any sample plans or policies out there that law firms can look to as sort of a checklist and guide as they bring people back.
Absolutely. I found that the OSHA website has some really good preparedness guidelines, and the State Bar of Wisconsin has some good resources as well on their COVID page. We have the Association of Legal Administrators that also has a website that includes checklists and different information that people should be thinking about as they plan to return to the office. And finally, the Society of Human Resource Management, it's called, we refer to it as SHRM, SHRM.org, also has some good materials, and many of which are free, even without a membership.
That's great, Lori. Unless you have anything else to add, is there anything else you wanted to mention before I let you go?
Well, I guess another hot topic is, do you screen or not screen
Right.
for illnesses? And the guidelines that you read from OSHA and the CDC suggest that it's prudent to do so. Some firms have decided that they're going to go as far as having people taking people's temperatures when they arrive in the office, and some people work in buildings that are taking on that level of responsibility. I think we at Stafford Rosenbaum aren't going to go to that measure, but rather we will ask people to self-monitor, and if they are feeling any of the symptoms that are listed on the CDC website as symptoms that are recognized as possibly related to COVID-19, we're going to ask them to stay at home.
Great. Lori Dorn, thank you so much for joining us today and providing that great information for law firms who are considering and bringing people back to work.
Thank you, Joel.